Good evening, and welcome to our continuing series on Savitri. We are in Book 2, the Book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 10, Kingdoms and Godheads of the Little Mind. And in this series of explorations in Savitri, we are graced with Alok by his presence. Namaste. We are on page 254, beginning with the line, "Once more the world was made a wonder web."
We go back to one line which is very interesting on the same page. All was precise, rigid, indubitable. So we give a lot of importance to a logically precise form of knowledge. I was struck when I read once in Mother's writings. She says you should be careful about it if you explain Sri Aurobindo in a way which is very clear, logical, and precise. You would form a kind of a religion because in the human mind it takes a form, which is a rigid form. Whereas truth is not like this. Truth changes itself, there is an infinite plasticity in it, and that's why people found it so difficult sometimes to understand the mother's ways. To one person she would say one thing, the next moment to the same person she may say something very different. And Amal Kiran recounts that incidents where regarding Savitri changes, where at one point she said,
I won't allow even one comma
to be changed, and she used the word maroon.
Yes.
And later on, when Amal Kiran went and once again pleaded his case,
he said, I'm not a moron.
Whatever the details are, that's not important. And she agreed. Now Amal Kiran makes a very interesting observation about it. He doesn't say this way that, earlier she had not heard or, she had not probably, I couldn't present with clarity, nothing. She says he responded to the state of consciousness. So when I had gone earlier, I had gone with a state of consciousness that I know it, and there was some degree of even a pride and an arrogance mixed with it. And next time when I went, it was with a very genuine inner feeling that Sri Aurobindo should be absolutely, presented in without anything else. And she agreed to that. So basically, we understand by truth something which is very, very cut out neatly. And that's one problem people have even, when they try to understand the Gita. They want a very clear formula of do this, don't do this. But life is not like that, evolution is not like that, creation is not like that, and of course the divine, he revels in breaking his own norms and rules. In fact, at the highest level we discovered there are no rules but habits.
Mother speaks today, we just read about knowledge.
Yes.
And how the yogi or even the supramental being can't put it in consecutive order because it's totality.
Yes, it's a simultaneous vision.
Exactly.
Whereas when we speak in a successive way. That itself falsifies.
Right.
Human language is not meant to, express that truth. So this is how reason tries to understand. Mm-hmm. The second thing which we are seeing, which we read in the passage earlier, that Sri Aurobindo is not belittling reason. Sri Aurobindo is showing its place and its limits. Now, reason depends upon the senses, and the senses are form makers in a certain sense. They're not form maker in the original sense of the powers, but they define the form, because senses will limit how much we can see, what frequencies can touch us, and according to that, we create a form based on these senses. Now, so the role of reason and the senses is wherever you can measure things, even though that is limited. But there are a whole lot of things which cannot be measured and which are subjective. But again, Sri Aurobindo reveals that the subjective At bottom, everything is subjective. It is the subject who is experiencing things the way it is being experienced. So subject has brought out of itself ways and means and faculties through which it experiences itself in the highest sense. There is because there is no other subject. From the divine point of view, there is only one. But reason creates a trenchant divide between a set of things which are objective, which can be grasped by the senses, and it calls them concrete. And a whole world of things which are subjective and normally doesn't interfere with that domain. That's how the Descartian, that things belonging to the realm of religion and things belonging to the realm of science. But it's a false and artificial division, which we are now recognizing when we enter the domain of psychology. How do you measure a thing like love? How do you even say whether there is love or not? You can't measure it. It's something which you cannot even define easily. So that he is describing, and then ultimately when matter itself was probed, there was a whole domain where subjectivity was playing its own role. The observer changed the observed.
Yes.
So once again this world became a wonder web. When everything was explained, one discovered that nothing is known. It's just explained. That's where we are. Once more the world was made a wonder web, a magic's process in a magical space, an unintelligible miracle's depths whose source is lost in the ineffable. Once more we face the blank unknowable. And this brings humility. It takes away the pride of reason that it can know everything. And because it has explained everything, therefore it means it is same as knowledge. No. Even one place Sri Aurobindo says in one of the aphorisms, knowledge is powerful when it is fresh. And then mother explains it, very often there is a practice that scholarly knowledge, it will say the same thing, repeat the same thing over and over again. But knowledge when it's fresh is something which flows from a well of inspiration and expresses itself in countless ways. And that's when it has the power. It can transmit an influence of the state of consciousness. In a crash of values, in a huge doom crack, in the sputter and scatter of her breaking work, she lost her clear, conserved, constructed world. So, the quantum world and much below, the subatomic and God knows where it will end, the particles. A quantum dance remained, a sprawl of chance where particles are jostling in possible space. We don't know. And in energy's stupendous tripping whirl, a ceaseless motion in the unbounded void, invented forms without a thought or aim, necessity and cause were shapeless ghosts, matter was an incident in being's flow, law but a clockwork habit of blind force. It's very interesting that this dance of energy has been more or less, there are scientists who have begun to think along those lines. It's one stupendous dance of energy. But and there are many, I use the word spiritual apologists, who want to hold on to some scientific theory to explain. Like, look, Einstein discovered relativity. That is what our yogis had discovered. And when this letter was sent to Sri Aurobindo, he said we should not try to, bring them together like this. What yogis have discovered is something far deeper, and that is consciousness. You have discovered at the material level that there is a dance of energy which creates forms. But this dance is neither confined to the material universe, nor are forms confined to material universe. And when we go beyond all the possible shades of energy and all the possible forms mounting in a hierarchy from the most material to the subtlest, then you have a state which is beyond forms, the utter formlessness, which are nothing but states of consciousness. So it's a far, far way to go, and we should not be in a hurry. But often people use this. Look, we have discovered energy. Look, this is Maya. Our ancient rishis said so. It's trivializing both.
Yes.
It's trivializing the rishi who made far profound discoveries and trivializing the scientist who at the end of it says, all my work you have declared in one word, Maya. So,
And he uses the word tripping whirl.
yes,
It's,
it's I think more related to the energy
I think so.
where it just suddenly escapes into a void and suddenly it appears again. So it's a tripping. We don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
We don't know how it appears. Where is it
Yes.
come from?
Yes.
Ideals. Now there is a practical side to it, not just the scientific practical. Scientific practical, he uses this Maya for tremendous purposes. Even Asuric Maya is very powerful. It can create worlds. It can create illusions. It can give a lot of weapons are born out of that. So science has used this power of Maya at the most material level in very powerful ways, both good and bad. But the problem is that if we think about just reason as the highest, and then we devise all these ideals, ethics based on this power of reason, they itself begin to collapse because if there is no basis, sustaining basis, no underlying permanent reality or something known as truth, then all our ideals and ethics collapse. This is the big challenge. Ideals, ethics, systems had no base. That's why in Indian thought the base is called dharma. It's not logic or rational, it's dharma. Dharma is something which is eternal. So there is the Sanatana Dharma. There is an eternal truth which is underlying the universe. And the more we align with it, the more. Now, here we have a basis for ethics. If we align ourselves with this eternal law of being, which is an evolutionary law, then we are going with the being's flow. When we don't align with it, then we are, even if we are rationalizing our actions or seemingly doing the right thing, still we are not aligned. It's like, to leave your parents for a higher spiritual pursuit. What Buddha did. Is it right or is it wrong? From a certain ethical standpoint, it is not the right thing to do. From dharma point of view, he did something which was absolutely in tune with dharma. Because that is the cry of his being, to discover a greater truth. So when he does that, he is following the law of dharma. Or we take an opposite side, a completely different context where Arjuna has to fight a battle and so is Karna and other warriors to fight. And the Karna and the other warriors are equally justified. They are saying, it's our kingdom. And why are you attacking us? Actually, they are the ones who have first outcast them. But that is not the issue. The issue was not at all that, whether they are justified morally or they are justified morally. Both had their own justification. The issue was that India had to be at that point of time united into a single kingdom. A nation was being born. And the basis of this nation has to be not force but wisdom, which the Pandavas embodied. If anybody in the Kauravas could embody it, Krishna would have allowed them to take over. So, again we see a totally different aspect, unlike Buddha where he is withdrawing from the world and it is dharma. For Arjuna, it is perfect dharma to engage in that battle. Because through it, a nation will be born and truth will have a chance to survive, like the allies and the Axis powers. But people may say, why Sri Aurobindo why he had to take sides? He took the side of dharma. This is the beauty of all this. People
Christ also said,
yes, and
leave your family, follow me.
yes, and it's very important because sometimes people say, why did Sri Aurobindo support Churchill, who was not a very good guy? Now, it's not about being good guy or bad guy. Churchill had his defects, his vices. It doesn't matter. It was not about Churchill. He was not supporting Churchill or England or anything. He was supporting dharma, which if the allies won, there was a chance for dharma to survive, or at least it never can be destroyed, but at least the pathways of the evolution of dharma can remain open. Otherwise, they will be blocked for millenniums to come. So, but if we take a purely rational argument, then you can justify either ways. And at the end of the day, if you take a scientific view of the world, then there is no rational, no logic, no basis of ethics and ideals, because it's all matter. So he says ideals, ethics, systems had no base and soon collapsed or without sanction lived. You can say, like Bertrand Russell,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have a real sanction from any deeper truth. Good of humanity makes no sense because then it's all matter. Humanity is nothing but a chance product. All grew a chaos, a heave and clash and strife. Ideas warring and fears leaped upon life. A hard compression held down anarchy, and liberty was only a phantom's name. So, at the rational level, because we have seen each idea can use it as its brief. See, this is happening now. You take the worldview of those who are, let's say, more liberal in their approach, wider and progressive, as the word goes, and they have their logic about how the world should be. Take the worldview of the terrorist; he will have his own justification. He will say, "I am the one who has been oppressed, and my voice." Whatever, he will have his own justification. So, at the rational level, you cannot find the reconciling truth between ideas. The reconciling truth can only be found in a higher synthesis, which is where the supramental comes to play. Otherwise, they will always war. Democracy has its own advantages and disadvantages. Dictatorship has its own advantages and disadvantages. And it's very difficult to rationally arrive at a point of synthesizing them. But in the higher, greater mind, it can be done. So he's showing the limitations. And liberty was only a phantom's name. How can there be a liberty when everything is bound to matter's laws?
Yes.
Where is liberty? It's only a talk about liberty. Creation and destruction, worlds enarmed on the bosom of a torn and quaking earth. Look at this line. It's Harihar, Shiva and the great preserver dancing together. Creation and destruction. Even it reminds of a particular vision captured in one of the Puranas where Shiva is dancing and destroying everything. So Parvati joins him and she starts creating everything. So they are dancing together. One is destroying the old and the other is creating the new. But the level of reason, it's like they are both working together. All reeled into a world of Kali's dance. So Kali here is from the word Kala. She is the one who changes time. That's why she is the greatest of all powers. All reeled into a world of Kali's dance. Thus tumbled, sinking, sprawling in the void, clutching for props, a soil on which to stand. She only saw a thin atomic vast, the rare point, sparse substratum universe on which floats a solid world's phenomenal face. Look at the marvel of these lines. That's what we have been talking about. Even science, you end up discovering that, often to students I share this, that both science and spirituality at least have one common starting point. And that starting point is appearances are deceptive. That's why you search for truth. If appearances are truth, then there is no further seeking. So, but science discovers behind the appearances nothing but those atomic points, charges whirling in space. Alone, a process of events was there, and nature's plastic and protean change, and strong by death to slay or to create, the riven invisible atom's omnipotent force. Who discovered this within the atom?
Amal wrote to Sri Aurobindo about these lines.
Yes.
Yes.
And even earlier, Pavitra Da had asked him, he's there in evening talks. He says there are three types of fires, and one of them is in atom itself. And this energy, for a long time, it was not given to man. But it had to be given as an exigency because of the war. knowing well its devastating effects, but still, that was the only way to suddenly halt. Otherwise, it would have been devastated. So it was actually given to man. Otherwise, man may not have discovered it. And of course, discovered eventually. So, in a certain sense, man was not fully ready for it. It seems Pavitrada had discovered the formula to have this atomic reaction on a small little, almost like an arrowhead, just like the Brahmastras and those things. And when he told to the mother said, "You know it, I know it, that should be the end of it." He never gave that formula. But the story is there and from very reliable sources. One chance remained that here might be a power to liberate man from the old inadequate means and leave him sovereign of the earthly scene, which is what we are seeing, the quantum mechanics and internet and everything else. For reason then might grasp the original force to drive her car upon the roads of time. All then might serve the need of the thinking race. An absolute state found orders absolute. To a standardized perfection cut all things. In society build a just, exact machine. This was 50 years back, we see. On one side, this kind of a revolution started. So many things we have today as a result of this quantum mechanics which they discovered. At the same time, we also see a revolt against a highly industrialized, structured society where everything was according to rule and law. And that's one thing which people often don't understand about the way the ashram functions. So often I tell them that it's not a logical creation. It's a divine creation. If you try to understand by logic, you will fail. Someone when was coming to the ashram, family couple, so very good friend of mine. So this friend of mine told his wife, he had grown up here, but wife had not. He told her two things. He said, "See, I am telling you we are going to ashram to live for good, but two things I must tell you. One, do not question anything and do not try to understand anything." You cannot understand the Divine Mother's creation unless you identify with her consciousness, which is a big cry, or she reveals something by her own grace. There is no logical way you can understand because it's not built by logic. So, Sri Aurobindo is reminding us that, reason will try to build a just exact machine. Order, law, why the divine can punish. There is a line in Savitri, the wisdom that punishes virtue with defeat and allows somebody who is good to go through one series after another of seeming failures, misunderstandings. There is a wisdom in it. It comes when the mind falls quiet. Then this awakens. But that will come later. Then science and reason, careless of the soul, could iron out a tranquil uniform world. Aeonic seekings glut with outward truths. And a single patterned thinking force on mind, inflicting matter's logic on spirit's dreams. A reasonable animal make of man and a symmetrical fabric of his life. This is how justice operates. Justice operates by this is the crime and this is the degree of punishment, and it's the same for all. But divine justice in the world doesn't operate like that at all. It's very strange.
Orwell in 1984, totalitarian government.
Yes. Divine justice operates very strange ways. There would be somebody who is declared a sinner. The other day we were talking about, see St. Augustine's story.
Yeah.
What is his merit? To be exalted to what levels? When you I read some of his prayers. It's amazing. So much laced with his psychic urge. When you look at his life, pre 35 years, it's unimaginable. Shubhendu has also used the word. How the divine grace can come. It doesn't follow a logic. With him, certain tendencies are being exhausted. With someone else, he is beginning to experience those tendencies. See, a world of difference.
Yes.
With Pranabdha, I remember once mother told him, you could have been. It's not that you don't lack intellectual capacity. Some people used to think, oh, he doesn't think much. But mother said, it's not true. You could have been, but you took this challenge of working on matter. That's why he has completely identified his consciousness with matter. So otherwise you could have taken that path. But you have taken this, which only the divine can see and understand. There was another person who was an alcoholic. And someone asked mother, why you are keeping him here? She said, if he would have gone to Himalayas, he would have been a great yogi. This problem he has taken upon himself and I am working upon him. Now, these are the ways of the divine. Somebody would say, where is justice? To another person, she will turn away. You are drinking alcohol, leave and go. There is a third person whom I know who still is, two persons, brothers. Dadas, so strong and disciplined. His brother, he tells me, oh, you people don't know the mother. How wide and liberal she was. She would give me money to drink alcohol. But she used to say, take it quietly in your room. How will you understand this Leela? Of course, you can understand it outwardly also. That when she takes care of one, she takes care of all who are connected. When there is a child who is open. Also, she understands the unique difficulties of each one. And third, a very practical level, that you please don't go outside and scandalize. But look at her ways. To Dara, she would give pocket money to pick up his smoke. But in the ashram, smoking and drinking are not allowed. How are we to understand this logically and rationally? We cannot, because there is a deeper truth which sees things. They are each one's own evolutionary law. That's why it's called dharma. There is no other word which can explain it. The mother says that in one of her talks, she says, there is no other word which can explain the divine law or completely capture it except dharma. She says that. No other word.
And there are so many examples in the ashram.
So many
are
ways, and which will look like irrational, self-contradictory, but it's not like that. There is a deeper truth. This would be nature's peak on an obscure globe, the grand result of the long ages' toil, Earth's evolution crowned, her mission done. That's why we see even the highest values of the old world have collapsed.
Yeah.
And whenever there is a change of age, this happens. In Mahabharata time, the highest values were embodied by Bhishma and Drona, on this side by Arjuna, Vidura. None of them helped. Yudhishthir, none of them helped. Because Sri Krishna was bringing something new. Same thing we see during Christ. That's why the Roman Empire felt threatened.
Exactly.
By whom? I mean, if you look at it, what is his power?
Yeah.
But they felt threatened because he brought in a completely new value. He started liberating mankind from slavery to his own ignorance. And they just didn't understand. They thought freedom means my own kingdom is in. Of course, your kingdom governed by ignorance and falsehood is in danger.
Yes.
That was the power he brought. Same we see with now Sri Aurobindo and the mother bringing in completely new law. So might it be, and now comes the punchline, so might it be if the spirit fell asleep. Yeah. The divine does not want that kind of a symmetrical fabric of life. Let's be very clear about it. It won't be divine creation, but another rational creation, Sattvic society, which have existed in the past but have collapsed. Because they move within limits. They are not evolutionary. After a while, they standardized everything. And then they collapse. So might it be if the spirit fell asleep, man then might rest content and live in peace. Matter of nature. Master of nature, who once her bond slave worked. The world's disorder hardening into law. Why is Sri Aurobindo using the word disorder when there is a law? Because there is an inner something which reason cannot see or fathom.
Yes.
It goes observing surface, and like for example, it cannot see the heart of the criminal or what was going on inside. It cannot see that behind this seeming virtue there is a pride and show and sham. Reason cannot see. It say, oh, he's a good man, he's a pandit. That's how we honor people who are outwardly very good. But who knows? He may be his all his talk and all his dress and all his outward capacities may just be feeding his vanity. But the divine will see it. So this is so there is a disorder when we go only by the surface facts. We actually create disorder, but it hardens into law, and we are fine with that because we think there is no other way to know. But there is a greater mind which can know what is going on in the core of things. If life's dire heart arose not in revolt, if God within could find no greater plan. And I think you must have witnessed 60s of in America and in Russia where life's dire heart woke up in revolt. It says, no, we don't want it like this. It didn't know the direction, it didn't know where to go, but at least it was like a great sowing. I think.
And a breaking up.
Breaking up. And something new coming. I think for the Russian Revolution, Shobinda has used that word. It's not about whether it failed or succeeded or the, track. Same thing with the flower children. Okay, it went into other things, but it was needed at that point of time to break that symmetrical fabric and a rational, scientific, industrialized society, which was the acme. So it woke up in revolt. But many visaged is the cosmic soul. A touch can alter the fixed front of fate.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah. It's so strange. So many examples say a little exchange between two people can sometimes alter the destiny of a nation, which goes unrecorded often. A touch can alter the fixed front of fate. His classic example is King Ashoka. See, before Ashoka is the last in the line of the great kings who kept intact the Indian nation. Paradoxically, the decline begins when Ashoka takes to Buddhism. It's a strange thing. He became a Buddhist and all the Kshatriya power began to fade. After Ashoka, see the whole lineage, you will hardly find a king of that stature who could hold the kingdom together. And things began to break apart. There was a tendency towards monastic life, withdrawal, and ultimately, what all one had to go through. And otherwise, we have another example also, how a small little meeting can change the whole destiny. A sudden turn can come, a road appear, a greater mind may see a greater truth. Or we may find when all the rest has failed, hid in ourselves the key of perfect change. This is where.
How he ends it like that.
At the end of the day.
Yes.
This is the lesson people have to learn in a divine creation like the ashram. As long as you are looking for the change from people, outside, machinery, administration, it won't work. And Mother has said that. She has said that what is the solution? Go back within, change yourself. To the extent you can change yourself, you will help the change outside. But very difficult for human impatience to understand it. No, I want it instantly. I want to see it with my own eyes in my lifetime. Then, well, if you want to see in your lifetime, then please become with a jhanda, an activist in our party. That's what somebody had asked me. He said, no, I want to see something tangible immediately. I said, then join the political party. That's the only thing you can do. But how long that change will last, and when you join, you will soon discover the many cracks which you don't know now. Or we may find when all the rest has failed, hid in ourselves the key of perfect change, ascending from the soil where creeps our days. Earth's consciousness may marry with the sun. Our mortal life ride on the spirit's wings. Our finite thoughts commune with the infinite. This sudden change is coming not through governments and uh, political and administrative machinery. This is coming from within man. It is coming in the children of today and in the children of tomorrow, who are at once breaking all the old patterns, and at the same time they are discovering intuitively a new social law. That's how the mother says that the Superman will discover the new law of society, social law from within. It will no more be something imposed from outside as a moral, ethical, legal process.
But these young people already contain much of it.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
little Rishika, you know Rishika.
Yes, of
The other
course.
day we saw her on the motorbike with her dad, and I said, "You're driving a motorcycle now?" She says, "I'm learning." She's 4 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I remember another 5-year-old, I mean, my own child. And one day when Kavita got a little angry for, mothers, because, you're not eating or whatever. He says, if next time you get angry with me, I'll go back to the world from where I came. How a 5-year-old child can speak this? He cannot explain all this today.
Yeah.
But he said those words, I'll go back to the world. World is not just this. World from where I came. How children can speak like this? And I have seen many children, even some of them ashram school children, despite all the problems and outwardly. One of the girls was doing a project on love. So she had come just to take help, and 15, 16-year-old girl. And I just asked her, okay, but what are your thoughts about love? Because you have to start from the near to the far. So I just asked her. She said, well, I think there is nothing else in creation except love. I said, that is the farthest limit. I haven't gone beyond it. You don't need. I can't tell you anything beyond. I can only tell you how this love in creation expresses itself from molecular to the divinest level. But look at it very intuitively.
Yes.
This is no ordinary thought. So, this is what is happening. A sudden turn has come. Sudden, because nobody expected. The changes that have come in the last few decades are beyond expectation. Children are behaving in ways which are baffling the parents and the teachers alike, and they don't know what to do about it. And perhaps it's best that they don't do much about it. Because perhaps doing and interfering may create more chaos.
Yes.
We should leave it to the mighty wisdom that is working in nature. So we'll meet again.
Namaste.